Dr Ngao Motsei is an author, a leadership consultant, speaker, and business school faculty. Ngao has a Bachelor of Arts, a Bachelor of Social Science, a Master's in Urban and Regional Planning, and a PhD in Organisational Behaviour. She is trained as a coach who specialises in working with abrasive leaders. Ngao has worked in the human resources, strategy, leadership, consulting for 25 years. She partners with C-suite leaders to raise awareness about bullying in the workplace, provides specialized coaching to abrasive leaders accused of bullying, as well as facilitating team repair workshops in the wake of harassment and bullying incidents. Her book is called Building Psychologically Safe Spaces, Safeguarding Your Workplace Against Bullying. Our repeat guests. The first one.
Hi.
Well, thank you for making the time.
Thank you.
So I was kind of collecting my car from this panel beating place because after the hailstorms, they're still fixing so a lot of cars. And we're going through these cars. And the client service person says, gosh, I dream a lot about cars. And I was just wondering when I was working on your questions, as a workplace bully expert, do you dream about bullies and their targets?
Maybe not so much dream. I dream about them, but I think more about targets, especially at the beginning of an engagement when I've just been assigned, because part of the work that I do, the methodology includes speaking to as many people as possible, the bullies, direct reports, peers, and so on. So I wouldn't go as far as dream about them, but because I speak to them for up to 3 days and listening day in, day out, the stories, the horrific stories that they share with me, and the pain that they essentially get at the hands of their leaders, kind of stays with me a little bit. And of course, on the bully side, the abrasive leaders accused of bullying, what stays with me, because at the beginning, when we have our first face-to-face conversation engagement, it's kind of tense, understandably, and because as human beings we are very defensive. So obviously the first thing is the defense. No, I'm not this. It's everybody else's fault, but me. But I like staying with your dream theme. What I dream about is for the biggest leaders in the highest levels in the organization to actually pay attention and to actually do something about it when people gather the courage to actually report the bullying, because it takes so much for somebody to actually say, I'm going to speak to somebody, I'm going to complain. So what I dream of is actually leaders doing something about this, because it takes quite a lot for somebody to come forward.
Yeah.
And the reason I say that is that most of the bullies tend to be very powerful people and are very, very influential. So if you come and you report and nobody does in the highest level says nothing about it, you're
powerless.
You're powerless. Yeah. So it's more just about at least having one powerful voice as an ally.
Yeah. We've already just started talking about bullying, but just to give the context, you've authored a book called Building Psychologically Safe Spaces, Safeguarding Your Workplace Against Bullying. What inspired you to tackle this topic?
Well, I started this topic many years ago. I think it's 9 years now. This year in September, it's going to be 9 years. And it started with, I'm not going to go into that story, but it started with a situation where I was bullied myself, and I did not even realize that I was bullied Fast forward, I then at the time I was looking at doing a PhD, so I did a PhD in workplace bullying. So, but nobody reads a PhD dissertation apart from
How many pages is...
360 maybe, 360
And we
pages.
could do it if we really wanted to.
You could, and I
Yeah.
mean, one of the things is I still try to write it in such a way that it could be understandable, but because it's an academic,
yeah.
it's an academic piece of paper, it has to be written in a certain way. So I over the years, after completing the PhD, and I thought nobody reads a PhD dissertation, but I think the work that I've done and some of the research, the findings from the research are worthy of being shared. So
Because it's a real thing.
It is a real thing. So I turned it into a book. And my intention was also to make it a non-academic book, make it
I
accessible.
noticed that the DR is not in front of your name on the book.
Yes, it's not. And you're not the first person that asked me, why is the doctor not there? And I said, well, the doctor is there because I'm the doctor. I mean, I don't...
You're really there.
I really... But it was... I mean, this is my first book, and I have really no reason other than, that's my identity.
Yeah.
And I don't need that to thrust whatever it is that I am. But I am
You worked for it.
PhD.
Yeah.
I did. Yeah.
So, what was the most challenging thing about writing this book, if at all? Huh?
Writing. Writing. It was actually challenging because what happens is, I would book time and block the days out of my calendar and like book writing, and I'm happy with myself that I've got chunks of times that I've booked in my calendar, and I sit in front of my computer and nothing comes. I type and nothing comes. But fast forward to after I have written something, and I was almost like, this is actually happening, and an interesting thing happened which I did not expect. Self-doubt started to come. Is this worthy? Is this how is it going to land? Starting to worry about what if it's gonna suck and so, and at some point I drew parallels with when I was doing the PhD, because at some point it was really, really tough, and I almost gave up. I almost threw in the towel, and I said, look,
That before I even start mine.
It is quite tough.
Yeah.
So a myriad of emotions of
But it's done.
And now it is done.
Yeah.
But the biggest thing also, if I may say so, was I was very, very intentional or cautious about not inserting myself in it, of not making the book about me. And yet everybody, the close-knit people around me said, but you've got to tell your story, because how else can you? So it was just about that. That was one of the biggest challenge, because I did not
want to be. So that is just perfect, because you say in the book that bullying tends to be associated with weakness, with people who can't speak up or stand up for themselves. You are definitely none of those things, and yet you yourself was a target of bullying. Why do you think that was the case?
I think the point I was trying to make there was that there's a myth that people that get targeted are weak, are people that cannot. But on the contrary, I found that, what you're saying are many things, but weak is not one of them, and I do speak out. But that also is one of over the years working in this field, and also through my research, that's also one of the reasons, the things that actually attract the bully, because more often than not, people that are bullied, some of a certain typology of people that are bullied are people that are very self-assured, people that have confidence, people that are well-liked and have got very good interpersonal skills, etc., they perform. They have some of the characteristics which the bully does not have. And that's one of the reasons that it attracts that.
Instead of saying, I like that quality about you, they just can't express it.
No.
They end up hating it.
Because it's more around, I suppose the thinking it's almost like, many also are driven by a great sense of self-interest. So it's everything should be about them, everything should be about me. So if you are Dudu, you're coming, you're having all these wonderful things, and everybody people gravitate towards you. So it kind of shifts the limelight away from you. So that's one of those, and there are many other different reasons, and
they're well laid out in the book, I must say.
Yes, in the book, I give different categories and different reasons why they do, and what kind of what also talks about. I also talk about the types of targets, because they're also different.
Yeah, you have a son who is a young adult now. However, when you were experiencing bullying, he was still young. Did you observe how that experience impacted how you felt about yourself as an individual and indirectly as a mother? And what wisdom has this lived insight given you in working as a workplace bully expert?
Well, he was young, but he was a teenager, so he could drive. I mean, I told you a story when I was doing the research. I digress, but I mean, every time you talk about my son, you get me going.
I know.
All right.
That love is real.
So I was doing research, and he said, "Mom, let me drive you. I mean, you're going to strangers' houses. You've never seen these. Some of them are guys you don't know. You're going to their houses and they're distressed." So he used to drive me and get in, hello, I'm so and so, and go sit out in the car. So protective of mom. But I mean, back to your question, it's actually interesting what bullying does, because for me, and when it happened, first of all, I was not aware that thing was bullying, that thing had a name. And once I became aware what was going on, the first thing was, because I'm also a very, very self-reflective person, the first thing was, what did I do? What is it about me that actually evokes this kind of... So it was more around, what is it about me? Almost like self-blame.
Yeah.
Maybe I know this about myself. I've got a strong personality. Maybe I should water it down, and this and that and the other. So in the beginning, it was that. It was more, surely there is something that I do, and the way I do,
why would a person do it
I come across,
something is wrong with you?
Unless something is wrong, especially because I'm meeting all the targets, I'm meeting everything that needs to. So that was the first thing. And then again, later on, after realization and talking to certain people, and people were saying, actually, you're not the first person that's experiencing this with this person. 2 other people had left. And then that kind of started to shift, the impact it had. I then told myself that, perhaps focus on things that you have control over, not things that you don't have control over. So what I mean by that, and it helps that I have a very, very strong internal locus of control.
Yeah.
So I looked at things that I can control and not react, not be triggered, and respond. And, so that helped. But I mean, you also asked how it impacted me as a person and as a mother, with that heightened level of awareness. So I would catch myself, because some days were so bad when I got home I'm not in a good space, and I would snap. Maybe I snap at my son, but fortunately, he would be like, "Hey, you just raised your voice with me. What's going on?"
Making you aware.
Making me aware. So I started being aware of, okay, I carry some of those things home, and I snap at him. Fortunately, as I say, he would say, "Mom, you are shouting. Mom, you're snapping," and this, that, and the other. So I started noticing myself and catching myself before I do that. So and I don't know if that made me a good mother or not, but the self-awareness. With self-awareness, it is what you need. I could only be the best version.
But it's also an insight you can share with somebody, because
Yeah.
then it's like, be aware of yourself.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
kind of that's going to be possibly bring you back to the center.
Yeah.
Because if you hadn't lived that,
Yeah.
you kind of advising from theory.
Yes,
No,
absolutely, because it is, and I speak to targets. Also, since I published the book, I get a lot of DMs and say, actually, I'm going through this. I don't know what to do. So it actually is quite useful for them to speak with somebody that has gone through that, who believes them, because the first thing is that. Do people even believe you when you share your story?
Yeah. Bullying is associated with school children terrorizing each other in the playground, particularly, and now increasingly on social media, and we call it cyberbullying. From the research you have done on this subject, why do adults also partake in such toxic and traumatic practice? Shouldn't they know better?
They should, or you think that they should, but there are a few things. One is power and control, and I find that some, at least those that I'm working with, I've had the privilege of working with, because it's not every day that you work with somebody that has been accused of bullying and kind of putting a mirror in front of them. So many, it's a question of control, and control which they derive from the and control and power which they derive from the positions that they occupy, and the desire to exercise that control over others for their own good, and to get whatever it is that they want. And I mean, some of the things that I spoke about is the deep self-interest, and many, I have to say, are actually not have very zero to low levels of self-awareness. So, but
Is it also like narcissism then?
there are different types of characteristics. Narcissists. You can't do anything about it. I mean, I was called in by a big multinational organization, and I was asked to coach this person who was very powerful, doing very well performance-wise, but it was not. Ultimately, it was not really sustainable, in the sense that they were losing a lot of talented people. That's one of the first telltale signs when all of a sudden there's an exodus of very good, talented people. And typically when I get into a coaching session with a leader who's been accused of bullying, I can almost it's tough, but I can get a sense of, maybe, this might work.
With that
and
person, yeah.
with that person, who I would describe as a narcissist, because everybody is stupid, everybody is doing this, and it's about. I actually had one of those where I had to go to the CEO and say, "Thank you very much. This is not going to work. I know." And I don't just want to take your money, but unless there's commitment, because for any kind of behavior change, there has to be commitment from the person
To move somewhere.
Yeah.
Now you remind me. It's always so sad to have to fire a client.
Yeah.
And it's like, I mean, there was a client who was very difficult, but she was an African female. And the idea of having to, and you like, God, the weight, you impacting on their future. And I understand when you have to. But yeah, that was tough. But I worked with her until she left that environment, which was okay, which is what she should have done. But anyway, in coaching practice, you specialize in coaching abrasive leaders. And I was just saying, I wasn't aware we could just like zone in there. Do these leaders know that they are abrasive and seek you out, or do you provide them with this feedback during the coaching relationship? I'm very fascinated. What comes first?
What comes first of all, they don't seek me out.
Yeah.
I got sorted by the line manager, who's typically the CEO or the HR director, and how they come to be called in is because there would be some kind of a survey or a tip of anonymous and complaints about the person, and so usually that's how I get called in. And unfortunately, when I get called in, it's a little bit too late. That's when something bad has happened. I mean, I can tell you stories for days about some of the horrific things, but obviously I can't because anybody that's going to see the clients, that
it's a confidential
it's a confidential relationship. So usually when I get called in, it's a little bit too late, or something bad has happened. And the first interaction with the coach is also usually very difficult, because first there's suspicion as to why I've been brought in, that I'm some kind of an ex. I need to finish some kind of a job or do a job that people can't. So it is actually quite tricky in the beginning in the contracting.
Yeah.
So
distrust, so when you coach a bully, what do they say when you ask them why? What do they hope to achieve by treating people in that way?
Well, the most common thing really is that I hear is that I'm not a bully. I'm a tough manager. I manage performance stuff.
Yeah.
I'm just I'm holding people to account. I'm holding people accountable. So there is, as I say, low self-awareness. For them, it is about performance. And many, if you actually are good performers, and because in the kind of spaces that I work in, performance come with great rewards.
Yeah.
So they're oblivious of the shadow they cast. I often talk about every leader has got a shadow.
Yeah.
And to be an effective leader, you have to be aware and intentional about the shadow that you cast in your direct environment. Many typically bullies are not aware of the shadow that they cast. For them, it's I'm just driving performance, and everybody else must just get on with the program.
In coaching abrasive leaders, what have you learned about humanity?
That's a very, very good question, actually. What I've learned and what I'm learning is that particularly with those that I would call successful coaching, those that have successful coaching outcomes, is that everybody, there's in all of us, the humanity connects us, and by humanity, there's each and every one of us. There's an innate goodness in each and every one of us. So nobody wants to be seen in this light. So once I start engaging, and people, the leaders, the bullies become aware of how they are being and how they come across impacts others, they really, I find that there's almost like a sense of, oh my gosh, I was not aware.
Wow.
And
That's a good one.
When I hear that, I know that, we are going somewhere.
Yeah.
We are going, something's going to. So no, because nobody wants to be seen in such a bad light.
Yeah.
So that's what, humans and humanity is about.
Yeah. Gives us hope now.
Yeah, it does.
You interviewed targets of bullying. Can you share an experience that particularly resonated with you amongst the stories shared, and how has it influenced your coaching approach when working with an abrasive leader?
Invariably, every story I find myself in, I hear and find myself in every story of the target. But the one that really stood out for me, I always talk about this, and I think, I don't know whether I'll speak about it here, but the person said, the bully is like an octopus sitting in a tank and spewing blue ink and polluting the entire environment. I mean, how powerful is this metaphor?
I was waiting for the tentacles to be around something.
No, and it was like,
gosh.
Yeah, it is because you spew, and that's the whole thing. It speaks to what I spoke about earlier, the leadership, the shadow. And that was so impactful.
So visual as well.
It's so visual, and you can see, and it just spews ink, and the entire environment becomes contaminated, which is what happens.
Yeah.
When people become courageous enough to report the bullying and leaders do nothing about it, it's almost like it's saying by implication, this is okay.
We want the blue environment.
This is okay, the blue environment. But how it impacts you, as the second part of your question is, when I started out, hearing or seeing my stories in the targets presented a paradoxical dilemma for me, in the sense that, because the first question people would ask, why are you doing this research? Why? I'm curious.
Oh, gosh.
And of course, I wouldn't lie. I'm doing this because, and I've got an interest in, so I was very, very aware of, my sharing this and not wanting it to influence what the target tells me, because I'm one of us, I understand. So that was one of the, the dilemmas that I had. Do I share, do I not share, when they ask me, especially in the beginning.
And how much do you share? Yeah.
And how much do you share? So I would say, yes, I have been. But also at the same time, I was very, very aware of how I should not be influenced, see the person that I'm now going to get into a coaching relationship with through the eyes of the target. Yes, they provide information that is very crucial for us to be able to craft a coaching program, where to start, where to focus on. But at the same time, because I often speak about compassion, and in this work, I also extend the compassion to the bully.
Yeah.
So I
have to.
in my interaction, I always watch that I have to be Geneva.
Gosh. So South Africa enacted the Code of Good Practice on prevention and elimination of harassment in the workplace. It defines verbal bullying as including threats, shaming, hostile teasing, insults, constant negative judgment, which criticism, or racist, sexist, and LGBTQIA+ phobic language. It's a lot. Do you believe that this code will be effective in preventing and eliminating bullying in the workplace?
Look, I mean, for the first time, this is a good start. For the first time, there's legal recourse, because before in South Africa we did not have any legislation or legal reference on how to treat or address or eliminate bullying in the workplace. So I think it's a good start that there's legal recourse. And what the practice also does is that it helps in defining what bullying is. Yes, it still defines or sees bullying within the context of harassment, but at least it defines and it actually refers to it as bullying. And I like what it says. I mean, it says bullying is any behavior that impairs dignity, that impairs anybody's dignity, and is behavior that contributes or creates a hostile environment. But what I also like is that it specifically spells out employer obligations, what employers have to do to ensure that they do not create a hostile environment. So I think it's a good start. Like anything else, you can have the most beautiful legislation, but if it's not lived, if it's not enacted, it's neither here nor there. So this is where the importance of leadership comes in, for them to not just profess zero tolerance, but it also has to start with them with behaving and living it and being proactive, because often what happens is that something is being done, interventions are being done at the back of something wrong having happened.
Yeah. In the book, you quote Warren Buffett when he said, "A leader doesn't get the message across. A leader is the message."
Yeah.
Can you expound on why this quote is relevant in the context of bullying?
I think it's relevant, tying to the point I've just said, that, you can't just say, because you in the same way that many organizations have got beautiful plaques of values that are put on the walls, yet what happens inside, the behavior of people is contrary to that. So the quote, really what it means in the context of bullying is that it's important for leaders to be models, to behave in the way that they want everybody else to behave, because leaders' behavior create the culture. It actually shapes. Yes, it creates the blue ink. It spews. So it's more around intentionality, being intentional about what kind of environment you want to create. And for that, words are not enough. Words have got to be backed up by action and behavior in order to give confidence to the entire organization that we're serious about it.
So in chapter 4 of the book, titled "Targets of Bullying and Why They Get Targeted," you give the reader ideas of how to bully-proof themselves without giving away too much, which people can read in the book themselves. Can you share just maybe one way to bully-proof yourself as a target?
I'll give 1.5 way. Okay. The half is don't take the bully toe to toe, because you would not, in terms of how you deal with it and how you confront or have the conversation. It's very important how you do that, because if you do what they do, almost like, because often we say, give somebody their own medicine. If you do that, it might not win. The other is just documenting your experiences and being very, very specific as to what happened, describing the behavior, who did and how long, and those kinds of things. And I give examples at the back, one of the tables at the tools at the back of the book, because it's also the one thing you don't want to do is to accuse somebody of bullying you when it might not have been bullied. It might have been what I call reasonable management, where they were holding you accountable.
Yeah.
So that's the bit I can say at this point.
What is the one beautiful trait of human beings that you hang on to when working in toxic environments or with toxic leaders?
I think it's that nobody sets out to cause harm intentionally to somebody, unless, I don't know how you are born. When we are born, we are, most of these things we learn them. we learn them. They are shaped by the environments. They are shaped by whatever circumstances that may shape them. But I mean, nobody intentionally, of course, we've got psychos all over the place, and I'm talking by normal at the risk of what is normal human being. But a normal human being in an organization, no one sets out to harm others, and nobody wants to be seen as in a bad light. So
it's a matter of just like having the patience and the technique to get to that beautiful part.
Exactly that. But with the right support, everybody else can turn the corner. Everybody can change, and people do change. But you just need to have the right support and be truly illustrate that you also truly invested in them changing,
Giving us hope here. Thank you. Your big, hairy, audacious goal is to rehumanize the workplace, one lead at a time. How are you faring at this so far?
I think so far so good. And what was missing for me from a few years ago was this piece of not working with abrasive leaders, with people that have been accused of bullying. From my experience, previous experience, every intervention that excludes the bullies is not bound to be sustainable. And I have worked a few that I've worked with, just watching them turn the corner and changing their behavior. Of course, once in a while they will trip. We're all human. We also do that, but catching themselves and self-correcting. So that is, and the environment, their whole environment, the team that they lead, the mood and the environment shifting, that is what rehumanizing organizations is for me. And I think one leader at a time.
Yeah.
One abrasive leader at a time.
Who has been the most influential person in your life, and how have they been so?
This kind of question, I never know how to answer it. It's and I'll answer it differently every time. So at this point, what comes to mind is more the book, books, and a specific book and a specific character in a book.
Oh, okay.
The Alchemist.
Oh, are you back there?
Alchemist by Paulo Coelho. I mean, the story, what's his name? The shepherd, the Andalusian shepherd, Santiago. His story of evolution, his personal journey traveling from Spain, I believe, to Egypt, and all the experiences and troubles and challenges that he met. For me, it is a story of in searching for your own identity and following your dream, and a story of transformation, and a story of overcoming bad experiences. I don't have the nice word for bad experiences, but your obstacle.
Yeah.
So that when I relate it to what I do now, and which started with my experiences as somebody that was bullied, it was quite painful. However, look at what it had brought me to do, and so that is, for some reason, I just thought of Santiago.
Gosh, I haven't read it in so long.
Me
Those
too.
are usually the books. It's like The Alchemist, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, Life Strategies by Dr. Phil. And they're just these books that, especially when you're a young adult reading them, they're like part of you. You don't even know where they end, or maybe you go to them because this is who you are anyway.
So,
I mean, that's a good one.
Alchemist is one of the first books. Well, I was still young.
Yeah.
It's like many years ago.
I mean, this is the thing. It's been going for generations.
Yes.
I actually got onto when it was still called Twitter, X space, and it was young people
Yeah.
And they were reading it as a classic. And I was like, and they were debating. And I think I was the oldest person in that group. It was so funny. Yeah. But that's good. That's actually a good one. I think, go and read The Alchemist and see in terms of bullying and this journey that you'll go on when you read this book too. So to end our conversation, can you share one wisdom that workplaces can gain in encouraging people to speak up about being bullied and the benefits of addressing and preventing bullying?
Yeah. Well, the benefits are quite simple. Happy employees translates into performance, into productivity. So productivity goes up, sustainability. And that's the one benefit and the one wisdom. And the other is that I speak about creating employee voice, creating an environment for employee voice where people can feel free to voice whatever they need to voice without fear of failure. And tied to that, bringing it to bullying in the workplace is particularly in relation to bystanders. Bystanders are people that are not bullied, but they observe, and they tend to keep quiet because it's more around, I'm so happy that it's not happening to me.
Yeah.
But I think what organizations can do is actually to empower also bystanders for them to be able to speak out, because today's bystander is tomorrow's target. You may not be the target now, but tomorrow you may be the target.
That is the ageless wisdom, isn't it?
Yes.
And anything in the world, that if you just stay on the sideline, you're encouraging.
Complicit.
You're complicit.
Exactly.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Yay! There's a quote that says, "No one heals himself by wounding another." If you are a bully, seek help to understand the impact your actions have, not only on others, but yourself as well, so that you find alternative and constructive ways of dealing with uncomfortable emotions. A bully is usually dealing with their own issues, such as low self-esteem, insecurity, self-loathing, or problems at home. As a target of bullying, it is essential to take steps to protect your mental health by seeking support of someone you trust to help address the bullying. Remember to not isolate yourself. Know that it is not your fault that you are being targeted by a bully. You deserve to be treated with respect and kindness. Until our next episode, live a life filled with love, compassion, and generosity. Thank you for making time for this episode of Wisdom Personified Conversations with Dudu Msomi. Please like and subscribe to our channel. Click on the bell notification to be informed when our next episode is available. Wisdom Personified Conversations with Dudu Msomi is also now available on Facebook Watch, Apple and Google Podcasts, as well as Spotify. Enjoy the wisdom journey.